Hey everybody, welcome to Two Over Comics. I'm Steve. Today for our last installment of this spooktacular series of runs we're doing, it's kind of a bonus for me because not only do I get to talk about one of my favorite horror comics, but also one of my favorite comic book characters and how it pertains to this little series we're doing, Halloween-centric runs. Books, but anyway, this is actually a series of books that is, they were mini-series that came out within a 10-year span of each other. The first one came out in 91 and the last one came out in 98, and it involves, you guessed it, Batman. This one's an Elseworlds tale that takes place not in regular continuity, so there's no lasting effects, and they were able to take a lot of liberties with the characters. But anyway, I'm just going to dive right into it because while I want to talk about the series itself and how great it is, I don't want to get into too much spoilery stuff. I'll try to avoid as much as I can. I'll just give out a few bullet points as far as the story goes, but you should definitely check it out and read it yourself because it's such a great read. If you're a Batman fan, if you're a comic book fan, if you're a horror fan, definitely pick it up. They're a little, they're not dense, but I mean, they're about like 90 pages a piece, so I mean, like, you know, you can pick them up at your local comic book store, they're available for digital download, but definitely, if you get a chance, like, you know, if the lights go out this winter, you have a big snowstorm, or even today, like, you know, when you're, you know, wait for, the trick-or-treaters to come to your house, and, like, you know, you just something to do until the kids get back, or if you have no kids, just wait for the kids to get to the door, and then when they knock on the door and say trick-or-treat, you say, get out of here, I'm reading the Dracula trilogy from DC Elseworlds. So this is what it is, the Dracula trilogy. It has three parts. The first one is called Red Rain, that came out in 91. The next one came out in 94, I think it was called Bloodstorm. And the second one that came out was Crimson Mist, I think. Let me check it real quick. It's I got little notes right here. It's Crimson Mist. Why do I second guess myself? But anyway, so let's just get right into it. The first issue, the first story involves Batman in Gotham City, obviously, and he's investigating these murders. He's getting there just in time to like not be able to see, but be able to see, like, you know, what happens afterward. We have like these people with their throats slit, seemingly. In the meantime, throughout this entire case, he's having these dreams of a woman just kind of speaking gibberish to him, and he's helpless to do anything about it. And then finally, he ends up, like, you know, getting further and further along in the case. I'm giving away too many spoiler things. Anyway, so given the fact that this book involves vampires, obviously the woman in his dream is a vampire. And she's kind of like, you know, foreshadowing to him when everything is happening. And obviously, not obviously, but I'm going to tell you, Batman ends up going toe-to-toe with Dracula in this book. By the end of the book, and this isn't really a spoiler because it's kind of like, you know, the main thing of the book, Batman becomes by the end of the book, Batman gets bitten by a vampire. He ends up becoming a vampire. But he's, like, you know, just still Batman. He's, you know, just not unwilling to take a life, unwilling to, like, you know, even drink human blood. And so, but he becomes essentially kind of one of the Night Stalkers of the DC universe, where they're hunting these hives of vampires and stuff like that to get as part of Dracula's hive, where he's trying to take over, like, you know, Gotham and obviously the world eventually, just like Dracula does. And then and the art is about, I didn't tell you what the creative team. The creative team is Doug Munch and Kelly Jones, and Kelly Jones just draws this book beautifully. It's very goth, exaggerated, like, you know, like just evil looking. It's so good. Munch, his script and story goes very, like, you know, like Interview with the Vampire, very, like, you know, like into like vampire lore, and it's very, like, you know, he takes deep dives into Victorian, like, stuff, like, you know, in like 17th or 10th century kind of things. And really kind of makes it a little more poetic and romantic than, like, how, like, you know, versus like something like Blade or Underworld. So the second one, Bloodstorm, that's the one that has that iconic cover that everybody remembers, with Batman all vampired out and the big long ears and stuff on the tree. This one right here, so by the end of the first one, by Red Rain, Batman ends up, when he becomes a vampire, Bruce Wayne's pronounced dead. And, like, according to Batman, yeah, Bruce Wayne is dead. Batman lives on. Da-na! And then we go to the next one, Bloodstorm, where Batman's a full-on, like, you know, vampire at this point. And they're kind of doing what, like, you know, Blade did in the original movies, where he has, like, that Alfred's concocting him some serum to kind of keep at bay his thirst. And just like in, like, you know, anything else, of course, like, the serum doesn't work, and it starts to, like, not be enough. and Batman starts like keeping out more and more vampirism characteristics. I never had to say vampirism. I never had to say that word out loud. But anyway, so Batman's going out and he's staking vampire. Now Batman kills because he's a vampire, so he's no longer held by the code of man. So he's going out and he's killing these guys, the last of the vampires. He ends up finding out that some hives that him and the girl vampire hunter from the previous series didn't get, so he's out finding those. There's very little vampires left until we get this priest type character who ends up being the Joker. So in this universe, the Joker is a priest, and he ends up stumbling upon one of the in the sewers, one of the vampire nests left over, and kind of, at first they like, we're gonna suck your blood. He's like, trust me, you don't want my blood. And he uses like the whole acid flower and everything, and he is becoming their leader. And but not a vampire. Still, it's the same old Joker. Only this time he's a priest. And so they end up going and start taking down. I'm getting this blow stuff again. But anyway, they start taking down mob guys and turning them into vampires to build a vampire army because Joker. Batman ends up teaming up with Catwoman. Who Catwoman in this is like some kind of like werewolf cat person drawn by Kelly Jones, who would goes in positions in the drawings that would make Frank Cho blush. But anyway, so they team up, and of course, Batman, getting more and more vampire-like. The thirst isn't doing enough for him. The only cure is really to get in bed with Selina Kyle, just like any other Batman comic. That's the cure for what ails him in every iteration of Batman. So by the end of the story, things go south with him and Catwoman. Not between them, but with Catwoman herself, and Batman, by the end of the story, ends up the whole time he's fighting the urge, won't drink blood. That's why regular vampire stuff won't work on him, like crosses and holy water. And then Batman ends up killing Joker and drinking his blood, and that just makes him full on vampire, full on I'm not here just to save Gotham. I'm here full on vampire. And so at the end of the story, Commissioner Gordon and Alfred, I'm going to say some spoilers, I don't care. This is a 20-year-old book. Commissioner Alfred ends up staking Batman in the Batcave, but not removing his head like you have to do with vampires in order to kill them. So he leaves him in the coffin, and Batman's kind of caught between life and death, which he'll never fully die, but he's cannot be resurrected as a vampire, so he won't live his life as a vampire, how Batman never wanted to. And then in the last installment, Crimson Mist, things just go batshit crazy, pun intended, but in such a good way. The other ones dealt with Batman kind of struggling with trying to keep a grasp of humanity and going full on undead. But in this one, he completely embraces it and is completely irrehensible, just crazed demonic creature who wants nothing more to than just rid the world of all the freaks of Gotham. Because at this point, this takes place years after Bloodstorm, and Commissioner Gordon and Alfred end up having tea at the manor and saying how things got out of control, how all these literal monsters now are taking control of Gotham. Scarecrow's there, Killer Croc is reared his face out of the sewers. Harvey Dent's become Two-Face, and Penguin. All these guys, they've all the literal monsters of Gotham have kind of come into play, and So Alfred ends up obviously taking the stake out of Batman, and Batman's like, why did you do that? And it just turns to a thing where Batman is just you shouldn't have done that. And Alfred's like, well, we knew this is what you wouldn't have wanted Gotham to become. And he's and he proves them wrong, how they probably would have been better off with the monsters of Gotham, because he goes out and on a killing spree, tracking down every one of the villains, anybody who's causing trouble in Gotham, and full on drinking their blood, cutting off their heads. There's one part where he goes into Arkham, and it's a bloodbath where he just they're all locked up, obviously, so he's going from cell to cell to cell and killing all the Batman's rogues gallery. And then by the end of that scene, Jeremiah Arkham's in the office and his head just rolls in, and it's your job's done, go home. It gets to the point so bad where Two-Face and Killer Croc ended up getting an alliance going with Commissioner Gordon and Alfred. So like, listen, we let the beast out of the cage, and we have to like put him back in. And so they end up cahooting with Commissioner Gordon and Alfred and creating this trap for Batman. Batman, of course, being the world's greatest detective still, even though he's a crazed lunatic vampire, ends up figuring out the plan. And basically it sabotages in their face to the point where it works a little bit, because even though like Batman like knows what to do, he's still like, he's not like the man in the cold calculating machine he usually is. So they kind of get the best of him a little bit. But then once like they get the upper hand, Two-Face and Killer Croc decide like Batman's not around anymore, so the deal's over. So now we're gonna kill you, and that turn goes south with them. Alfred sees what's going on. He can't let Commissioner Gordon get killed, so he ends up sacrificing himself for Commissioner Gordon, where Batman needs the strength to be able to beat these guys, and he ends up drinking Alfred's blood and then cutting Alfred's head off and killing him, which is crazy. He ends up killing Killer Croc, Two-Face. He finds Two-Face and sits a stake in like both his heads. One stake for each face, and it's as a kid, I was like I think in like junior high reading this, and it was insane. And so they end up going. Commissioner Gordon finishes the plan as far as getting rid of Batman and like sets charges in the Batcave to like let it get destroyed and kill Batman, which it kind of backfires on him, because basically the charges he detonates end up killing Commissioner Gordon. And Batman sees what he's done and what's the little sliver of humanity he has left. He decides to okay, that this is it. I can't keep on going on like this. I can't let and the villains have been stopped, and all my friends are dead. Alfred's dead, so he ends up going into the sunlight and just and that's what happens when he's a vampire. He turns into the ether of nothingness, and I don't know what the undead does, because they certainly don't go to heaven or hell. I don't know, but and that's the end of the trilogy. Again, the story's great. It's a great setup, a typical vampire horror epic. Since it's a 3-part, like I said, 90-page giant. And Kelly Jones, just one of my top 5 favorite Batman artists of all time. Probably top 3. The art is just unbelievable. The first one and the second one are kind of similar. They kind of have that early 90s. Pre-image style, and then the third one, you can tell it's been years and years later. It's Kelly Jones kind of developed it's a little more clean, a little less busy, but it's still very dynamic and very goth looking, and it kind of resembles a little bit of a Scott McDaniel a little bit, but I mean I think Scott McDaniel's influence is actually Kelly Jones. But again, it has that iconic image of, I love that cover of him on the tree as a vampire, and the book is genuinely creepy and scary, and it's just uncanny. Uncanny in the sense, not in the X-Men sense, but more in the Freud sense, where it's you take something that's normal, but then skew it so it's unexpected and unrecognizable. Which is basically you take what this is, you take the Batman universe and kind of add a little bit of poison to it, and it's just so good. I can't recommend this book enough. I'm trying to think what else I can say to really promote it, but I can't. You just I'll put clips of the covers, and that should sell itself. But yeah, Batman. It's only been revisited I think twice. I think it's there was one part in Scott Snyder's Metal series. I think they made mention of it. And I think there was an episode of Batman Brave and the Bold where obviously they didn't do the story, but there was Batman was a vampire at one point. And that's about it. But I would love this. This is the movie. While DC's doing live Elseworlds and its live action cinematic universe, this is a movie I would love to see, but I don't think it will ever get made. But I'd love to see it in some form, maybe an anime or something, when HBO Max, whatever it is, starts launching more DC properties. So yeah, Batman the Dracula series, definitely check it out. This has been Runs, and we're going to go back to normal after Halloween, so trick or treat, and what did I say last time? Oh yeah, bye guys. Boo!